school areas safe from COVID-19. Bus drivers to undergo drug tests during festive season. Good afternoon, I'm Azlani Ardani and you're watching Updates at Noon. The Health Ministry has declared the school areas as safe and free from COVID-19 pandemic. Its Director General Dr. Noor Hisham Abdullah said no positive cases was detected since the government reopened the schools nationwide.
Dan sekarang ni sekolah tu ialah satu risiko juga, tapi kita boleh uruskan risiko tersebut. Dan kalau ada kes yang dikesan di sekolah, saya kita akan tutupkan sekolah tersebut. Tapi kalau kita tak benarkan sekolah untuk berfungsi sampai bila, itu yang isu tu. Tapi kalau kita lihat daripada 10 Jun sampai hari ini, tak ada kes yang dikesan di sekolah. Jadi masih sekolah ialah kawasan yang selamat. Kita pastikan kita jaga SOP, kita jaga cara kita berinteraksi dalam sekolah dan menggunakan peraturan yang sedia ada.
Speaking in an engagement session with the media practitioners in Putrajaya, Dr. Noor Hisham said the ministry was holding discussions with the Education Ministry to issue guidelines for the Standard Operating Procedure SOP to prevent congestion outside the school, especially after the end of learning session. He added that the two ministries were also working together to include the public health aspect as an education syllabus. Meanwhile, asked on the COVID-19 vaccine, Dr. Noor Hisham said it was still at the third phase of research and Malaysia was not selected to carry out the study. Meanwhile, in providing an update of Sentosa cluster in Sarawak, Dr. Noor Hisham said initial investigations have found that it is very likely the source of infection came from activities within the community. Until yesterday, there are 31 individuals from the cluster who tested positive for COVID-19. Dr. Noor Hisham said a total of 1,026 people have been tested, including 397 health personnel, 104 sanitary workers and security personnel, 196 patients and 221 close contacts. As a result of the cluster's emergence, Dr. Noor Hisham said all outpatient services from the Sentosa Hospital have been temporarily moved to the Sarawak General Hospital. He explained that testing capacity now stands at 1,000 tests at the Sarawak General Hospital, with 500 available at University Malaysia Sarawak, 150 tests at the Borneo Medical Centre and 100 more at the Sarawak Health Centre should the need arise. JKN Kedah. In the meantime, Kedah State Health Department has confirmed that there is no COVID-19 infection detected among kindergarten students and teachers in Kubang Pasu. Its director, Noor Azam Abdul Rahman, said so far there are 2 individuals being placed under home quarantine for 14 days for being close contacts with the Sivaganga cluster patient. Noor Azman said a total of 73 kindergartens and 3 daycare centres under the Community Development Department KEMAS in Kubang Pasu were ordered closed following the spread of COVID-19 in the district involving the Sivaganga cluster. He explained that the directive was issued as a preliminary measure to contain the transmission of COVID-19. The closure involved a total of 1,605 kindergarten students and 62 daycare students. The temporary closure was to allow cleaning and disinfection work to be carried out in all premises according to the Standard Operating Procedure SOP as stipulated by the government. A total of 2,174 individuals have returned to the country from overseas from 24th to 28th July. Senior Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob in a statement said 7 of them were sent to hospitals for further treatment. Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri said they were placed in 9 quarantine centres in Kuala Lumpur, Negeri Sembilan, Pulau Pinang and Johor. He added that they returned from 22 countries including Philippines, Qatar, Pakistan, Hong Kong, India, Japan, China and Australia. He also said that police have conducted a total of 1,755 inspections on individuals who were undergoing mandatory home quarantine. Meanwhile, on the issue of border control, the senior minister said the authorities have arrested 2,491 illegal immigrants since 1st May to 28th July in Benteng. He added that 569 skippers and 144 smugglers were detained, while 96 boats and 257 vehicles were seized. On another note, a total of 238 individuals were arrested by the authorities for violating regulations under the Recovery Movement Control Order. The senior minister said of that, 42 were remanded while one was released on bail and another 196 individuals were issued compounds. Now, this just in, Sabah Chief Minister Datuk Seri Muhammad Shafie Apdal has announced the dissolution of the State Legislative Assembly to pave way for a state election, which has to be held within 60 days. The announcement was made just now at the Sabah State Administrative Centre after obtaining the consent of Sabah Yang di-Pertua Negeri, Tun Juha Mahiruddin. Earlier today, Datuk Seri Muhammad Shafie had an audience with Tun Juha at Istana Negeri at 8:25 a.m. Stay tuned as we will provide more updates on this in our later bulletin. The National Anti-Drug Agency AADK has begun conducting urine tests on bus drivers as part of efforts to reduce road accidents during this festive season. Its Director General Datuk Sri Zulkifli Abdullah said the operation, dubbed Op Terminal, involves 50 bus operators and 25 bus terminals nationwide. Datuk Seri Zulkifli said the operation that began yesterday will be continued today and on 4th and 5th August. He explained that the drivers were tested before they embarked on their journey.
Kita lebih kepada deterrent, pencegahan dan kesedaran. Supaya mereka tahu, dan kita juga nakkan pengusaha-pengusaha bas tu tahulah tanggungjawab mereka sebagai majikan kena prihatin terhadap aspek ini dan bukan sahaja untuk mengaut keuntungan lah. Ya. Jadi kita tak naklah dia nak kejar trip kan. Selalunya berlaku dalam lori, pemandu-pemandu lori kadang-kadang dia nak kejar trip. Dia lagi banyak trip dia buat, lagi banyaklah dia dapat. Jadi dia merasakan apabila dia kejar trip ni, dia nakkan ketahanan. Jadi itulah kadang-kadang salah nasihat lah. Orang kata kalau nak tahan, makanlah pil kuda ke, makanlah pil itu dan sebagainya kan. Jadi yang itu yang menyebabkan mereka ni terjebak lah. Kita nak elakkan yang itulah.
Datuk Seri Zulkifli said that based on statistics from 2019, there were 14 positive results from the 3,505 people who were tested for drugs during Ops Tahun Baru Cina and 8 positive results from the 3,046 people who were tested during Ops Raya. Perak Police have crippled a drug distribution syndicate with the arrest of 10 individuals, including a married couple. Perak Police Chief Datuk Razaruddin Hussein said the arrests were made in 2 separate raids in Ipoh and Kampar on Monday, where drugs worth 2 million ringgit were seized. Datuk Razaruddin said the syndicate was believed to have been active in the past 2 months during the Movement Control Order.
Pasaran untuk dadah ini ataupun pil ini adalah pasaran untuk luar negara, bukannya pasaran di sinilah. Kalau kita tengok daripada trend tangkapan di sini, bukan pasaran di dalam negeri Perak. Modus operandi yang dibawa daripada luar masuk ke sini dengan membawa kanak-kanak. Ini satu cara untuk mengaburkan mata penguatkuasa disebabkan kita mempunyai sekatan jalan raya di sepadan negeri.
Datuk Razaruddin said 8 of the suspects, aged between 21 and 54, were remanded for 7 days, while the remaining 2, who were children aged 3 and 8, were released to their family. The case is being investigated under Section 39B of the Dangerous Drugs Act 1952. Two directors of a private firm were charged at Shah Alam Session Courts on 9 counts of criminal breach of trust (CBT) involving 1.6 million ringgit between 2013 and 2014. The accused Kwan Tek Hian, 45, and Sin Kiong Fat, 52, pleaded not guilty and claimed trial after the charges were read before Judge Rozilan Saleh. On the first to the fourth count, Kwan was accused of committing CBT involving 781,300 ringgit between 3rd October 2013 and 10 March 2014 at a bank in Jalan Raja Harun, Kajang. On the 5th to the 9th count, Sin was accused of committing CBT involving 860,119 between 30th July 2013 and 20th January 2014 at a local bank in Jalan Raja Harun, Kajang. The charges were made under Section 409 of the Penal Code, and if convicted, both the men would be sentenced to a maximum of 20 years jail and whipping as well as a fine. Judge Rosila then set bail of 50,000 ringgit for each of the accused with 2 sureties, and both men have to surrender their passports to the court and to report themselves at the nearest MACC office every month. The judge set 4th September for remention. Still to come, government to develop comprehensive digital infrastructure plan. The Communications and Multimedia Ministry, along with other relevant agencies, is working together with major communication service providers to develop a comprehensive digital infrastructure plan to meet the people's needs. As Minister Datuk Saifuddin Abdullah said, discussions at the National Digital Infrastructure Laboratory (IDN Lab) had commenced since 13 July, with the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission (MCMC) as its facilitator. Datuk Saifuddin said these agencies and communication service providers had briefed him on the latest development of the talks in Parliament yesterday. He said in its first 2 weeks of the discussion, the IDN Lab had agreed in principle on the nation's aspirations and needed achievements concerning broadband coverage and services. He added that special focus is given on plans to widen coverage in rural and remote areas, besides also improving broadband services as a whole. The minister said the availability of existing digital infrastructure information as well as other relevant data from various sources would also be enhanced to enable more effective planning. The results of the final discussions of the IDN Lab to finalize targets related to the development of the country's digital infrastructure would be known in mid-August. Datuk Saifuddin also said that the government was very concerned and aware of the people's wish to enjoy a satisfactory level of connectivity and quality of experience in communication services. He explained that the need for digital connectivity is becoming increasingly important, especially after COVID-19, and the planning and construction of a more thorough, comprehensive and quality digital infrastructure that supports the economic sectors and new growth areas have become important aspects. Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad has appointed former Chief Secretary to the government, Tan Sri Dr. Ismail Bakar, as its chairman effective 1st August. In a statement, the bank explained that Tan Sri Dr. Ismail will be succeeding Datuk Zamani Abdul Ghani, who retired on 1st March following 9 years of service. The Islamic Bank said Tan Sri Dr. Ismail had over 30 years of extensive experience in the civil service, having served several important portfolios including Secretary General of the Finance, Agriculture and Agro-Based Industry and Transport Ministries, as well as Budget Director at the National Budget Office of the Finance Ministry. Tan Sri Dr. Ismail was the 14th Chief Secretary to the government on 29th August 2018 before retiring in December 2019. He was also a senior advisor to the World Bank Group, Washington, D.C. from 2008 until 2010. Bank Islam Chief Executive Officer Muhammad Muazzam Muhammad said with Tan Sri Dr. Ismail's vast expertise in experience in a number of portfolios, this appointment was timely as the bank was charting its future course to become the ultimate Islamic bank of choice. In the foreign front, freight train derails on a bridge in Arizona, causing massive fire. The Kaaba in Mecca is adorned with a new kiswa, the cloth that is placed atop Islam's holiest site, as the Hajj begins amid social distancing measure aimed at curbing the coronavirus pandemic. The tradition, carried out yearly once before the Muslim feast of Eid al-Adha, were performed by Saudi officials at the General Presidency of the Affairs of the Grand Mosque and the Prophet's Mosque. The presidency said the kiswa, a silky black cover embroidered with golden threads, was transported from the King Abdulaziz complex to the Grand Mosque using a fleet taking all the necessary precautions imposed by health authorities to fight the spread of coronavirus. The fleet consists of a truck designed especially to transport the kiswa, where it is coated from the inside with a special material to protect it from tearing or damage. The kiswa consists of 4 pieces, each covering one of the faces of the Honorable Kaaba and the 5th the curtain placed on its door. Only up to 10,000 people already residing in the kingdom are allowed to participate in this year's ritual, compared with 2019's gathering of some 2.5 million from around the world. The pilgrims, who have all been tested for the virus, are all required to wear masks and observe social distancing during the rites completed over 5 days in the holy city of Mecca and its surrounding. A freight train derailed and caught fire on a bridge in Arizona on Wednesday, but there were no reports of injuries. The accident near Phoenix took place at around 6:15 a.m., prompting a massive fire visible for miles and sending some 100 firefighters, police and paramedics to the scene. Tim McMahon, a spokesman for Union Pacific, told AFP news agency that 8 to 10 cars caught fire as the train, which was moving freight, crossed a bridge over Tempe Town Lake. He said that the cars that burned for hours were carrying lumber. McMahon said that the south side of the bridge collapsed and rail cars fell into an empty park below, adding that the bridge had undergone inspection earlier this month. He said there were no injuries among the crew, but one person was treated for smoke inhalation. 2 of the 3 tank cars on the ground under the bridge contained cyclohexanon, while the third contained a rubber material. However, none are reported leaking and no tank cars were involved in the fire. The cause of the derailment was under investigation. According to the National Centre for Biotechnology Information, cyclohexanon is a colorless oily liquid with an odor resembling acetone and peppermint. The chemical is both flammable and an irritant and is mainly used for the production of nylon. The United States will slash its military presence in Germany by 11,900 troops in what the Pentagon on Wednesday called a strategic repositioning. U.S. Defense Secretary Mark Esper said that the Pentagon will be sending home about 6,400 of its military personnel in Germany and move nearly 5,600 to other NATO countries, including Italy and Belgium. He said some could also be relocated to Poland and the Baltic countries if Washington can reach agreements with them. The move, which will cost the U.S. government several $billion, will cut the presence of U.S. military personnel in Germany to around 24,000. Esper stressed that the action is part of his broader plan to reposition U.S. military forces globally to better address key threats, including their combined stance with NATO against Russia. But at the White House, President Donald Trump told reporters that Germany has not paid its fair share for the defense of Europe. Thus, Trump said the move was to punish Berlin for its weak defense spending. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro on Wednesday attended his first public event since recovering from COVID-19, though he declined to speak. Brazil's president is typically last to address at the presidential palace, but Bolsonaro only watched the event, recognizing women who work in rural areas around Latin America, and left the room once it ended. He wore a face mask throughout the event. Bolsonaro had consistently downplayed the coronavirus's severity during the pandemic, and he often joined supporters and took outings from the presidential residence, sometimes without a mask. On July 7th, he told reporters he had tested positive for COVID-19, then spent more than 2 weeks confined to the presidential residence while participating in meetings by video call. On Saturday, he announced he had tested negative and left his home, rode a motorcycle around Brasilia, and took photos with some well-wishers. Bolsonaro said he experienced only minor symptoms during his convalescence and took to social media to promote the use of hydroxychloroquine for treatment. Also later Wednesday, his administration lifted an order that has blocked foreigners from entering the country by air since late March because of the COVID-19 crisis. It said foreigners will be allowed to entry at Brazilian airports if they present before boarding their flight's health insurance valid in Brazil during the period of their stay. Belgium's second city, Antwerp, announced a nighttime curfew as the country toughens social distancing and mask-wearing rules to stem a flare-up in coronavirus cases. In the city, a major business hub and seaport, bars and restaurants will close at 11 p.m. and citizens will be obliged to get home by 11:30 p.m. and to stay there until 6 a.m. Everyone over 12 years old will have to wear a face mask in public places and crowded areas. Contact and adult teams sports will be banned, and teleworking will be compulsory for anyone whose employment allows it. Antwerp Governor Cathy Burke said in a statement that the situation in her city was such that she had decided to supplement the measures already taken on a national level. She urged outsiders not to make a non-essential visits to Antwerp and young people to stay indoors. Earlier, Prime Minister Sophie Wilmès ordered that from Wednesday, Belgians will be allowed to see a maximum of 5 people outside of their families, reducing their social bubble from 15. She also strongly recommended working from home. Wilmès' declaration came as fears grew in some European countries of a damaging second wave of the pandemic, with Britain reimposing quarantine requirements on holidaymakers returning from Spain. Coming up in sports, BWF cancelled 4 international tournaments amid COVID-19 concerns. The COVID-19 pandemic has exerted a further toll on world badminton, forcing the Badminton World Federation (BWF) to cancel 4 international tournaments following consultation with the host. The cancelled tournaments are the 2020 Taiwan Open, slated to be held from 1st to 6th September, Korea Open 8 to 13 September, China Open 15 to 20th September, and Japan Open from 22nd to 27th September. BWF Secretary General Thomas Lund, in a statement yesterday, said the decision was made in the interest of the health of the players, spectators, volunteers, and their affiliates. Lund asserted that the world governing body will continue to adjust to ensure any badminton activity fully complies with the rules and regulations set by the World Health Organization, WHO, local health authorities, and international and domestic travel restrictions. The Malaysian Athletic Federation (MAF) kept its promise when it paid incentives for national records set at the 2019 Philippines SEA Games, amounting to 5 national athletes. Prior to this, MAF had promised to give an incentive payment of 1,000 ringgit for a new national record set by national athletes in any tournament, both locally and internationally. Among others, the national athletes who were present to receive their incentives in a small ceremony held in Kuala Lumpur were national hammer champion Jackie Wong, who renewed his national record 3 times throughout 2019. He received 3,000 ringgit, while marathon runner K. Prabhu Das, Iskandar Alwi, pole vault, and Andre Anura Anwar, long jump, each received 1,000 ringgit. MAF President Dato' S.M. Mutu said the sports body appreciated the contribution of national athletes who had made the country proud on the international stage and refused to let problems regarding incentives affect their spirit.
Kalau ada rekod yang baru, mungkin di masa depan kita akan buat macam ni juga lah. kekal 1,000 depend on tengoklah kita punya finance macam mana. Mungkin kalau boleh buat, kalau dia punya masa tempoh macam mana dia ada buat rekod tu, kita ikut bagi tu sajalah.
On to Serie A, Cristiano Ronaldo's hopes of finishing the season as top scorer in Italy's Serie A faded away on Wednesday as he failed to find the net when champions Juventus slumped to a shock 2-0 defeat away to Cagliari. The 35-year-old Portuguese attacker is on 31 goals for the season, 4 behind Lazio's Ciro Immobile, with only a home league game against 5th place AS Roma left to play. They defends. When his teammates did manage to get a shot on target, they found keeper Alessio Creagno in superb form as Cagliari held on to win.
Kepercayaan kepada Tuhan,
kesetiaan kepada raja dan negara,
keluhuran perlembagaan,
kedaulatan undang-undang,
kesopanan dan kesusilaan.
Kerajaan telah membuat keputusan mulai 1 Ogos pemakaian pelitup muka di dalam pengangkutan awam dan tempat-tempat awam yang bersesak-sesak adalah diwajibkan. Mereka yang didapati ingkar peraturan tersebut akan dikenakan tindakan tegas seperti kompaun dan dihadapkan ke mahkamah. Orang ramai boleh menggunakan pelitup muka yang dijahit sendiri mengikut spesifikasi yang dikeluarkan oleh Pertubuhan Kesihatan Sedunia WHO. Kementerian Kesihatan menyatakan bahawa 2 perkara yang mampu untuk mengurangkan jangkitan adalah memakai pelitup muka atau melakukan penjarakan sosial. Kita masih belum menang. Terus patuhi SOP yang ditetapkan bagi memutuskan rantaian jangkitan COVID-19.
That's it from us this afternoon. In our top stories, school areas safe and free from COVID-19. Join us again for News at 10 comes this evening on the Berita RTM News channel on My Free Views channel 123. I'm Azlani Adani. Thank you for watching.